This mission is mine alone. If I falter, if I fail, there won't be anyone left to stop what's coming.
When Horizon Zero Dawn came out, it was Guerrilla Games' huge departure from the Killzone franchise into the open world. Their first outing was universally applauded as a great initial game in the series that set up a really interesting world, all set after the events of the fall of mankind. All with robot dinosaurs and a great new protagonist to lead the series forward. I was really captivated by it and platinumed that game as soon as I could. So needless to say, the follow-up to that game, Horizon Forbidden West, has had a lot of hype around it from fans like myself. And with it releasing on the PS5, many are curious to see just how big of a leap they have taken and if this sequel is everything fans of the series could have hoped for. The story of Forbidden West picks up not too long after the events of Zero Dawn. I won't get into any spoilers here as it's a spoiler-free review, but just know that the big revelation at the end of the previous game is a huge plot point in this one, which forces Aloy to travel into the Forbidden West. The game has you going after various programs needed to solve much of what is affecting the environment on the planet, causing Aloy to team up with other characters along her journey. Now that's about as spoiler-free as I can talk about for the setup of this game, especially if you haven't played the first game. But if this is your first game in the series, the game does a really nice job at catching up to the previous events that have transpired.
Everywhere I look, things are falling apart.
So let's really get down to business and talk about some of the stuff that I liked most in this game. One of my favorite things about Forbidden West is the story and how grand it feels. A few hours into the game, it starts to feel a lot like assembling your crew in Mass Effect 2, which also happens to be one of my favorite RPGs, so needless to say, I was pretty happy during these moments. And as more people join your team, they'll follow you back to your base where you can interact with them and get to know them better, with each of them having their own missions as well. Many of them having some incredibly well-written stories, with my favorite being Katalos. These side missions with your crew and with all the people of the various tribes in the world were easily the biggest surprises of this game for me. The quality of the side stories are some of the best in the business, and I feel like more people should be talking about it, as some of them are arguably better than the main narrative missions of the game. And keep in mind, all of this is happening while a deeper mystery is being uncovered by Aloy, as silence from the previous game makes a welcome return. Or by Aloy's stance, I guess, a very unwelcome return.
First I rebuild Gaia, save life on Earth, then I track you down and end yours!
But personally, I wished he was in this game a little bit more, but they do have a great narrative reason as to why he wasn't as involved this time around. The weaving narrative offers plenty of twists and turns in the story, which on paper really shouldn't work at all, but because the writing in this game is so great, it is pulled off rather seamlessly. With the exception of one particular surprise that I really wish they hadn't gone for. But it's almost forgivable given how many other twists and risks that the story takes, and most of them all pay off in a pretty big way. And if you were a fan of the lore in the first game, this one goes even deeper with so many lore dumps that had me intrigued beyond belief. But if you're not quite as invested as I was, it might feel like a little bit of a drag to go through. Luckily, the game still makes plenty of sense if you don't want to exhaust every single piece of a character's dialogue, which is great. The one thing that you will immediately notice when you start off in Horizon Forbidden West is the huge leap in visuals from the previous game. With its jaw-dropping vistas and vibrant lighting, Forbidden West might just be one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. And that visual achievement extends not only to the world of Forbidden West, but also to the characters. Unlike what you often find in open world games, the impressive facial animation in this game isn't just exclusive to the main cast of characters. Each of the side characters have the same level of detail and care put into them, and because of that, it makes for a far more immersive experience. Throughout the game, you'll travel to a variety of different areas, from desert biomes to others completely blanketed in snow. Each landscape feels unique and differentiated from the last, as the lush forested areas not only look distinct from the beaches, but also operate in drastically different ways from each other, which is always great for variety in an open world game as large as this one is. It took me roughly 45 hours to beat Horizon Forbidden West, so the variety of settings were huge. And as big as the game is, it also manages to have a ton of smaller details as well, with one of my favorites being how Aloy reacts in different climates. After she comes out of the river for a swim, she shakes all the water off, and in desert climates, she literally sweats, which is insane. The last thing I wanted to touch upon with the visuals is how amazing the water looks. I honestly cannot overstate this, but it might not only be some of the best looking water I've ever seen in an open world game, but maybe some of the best looking water I've ever seen in a game, period. It's that good. Which is huge because how good the water looks in this game is a huge reason why the introduction of the underwater aspects of this game worked so well. Speaking of the underwater areas, they are brand new to the series and offer a new way to explore the world. I was honestly a bit skeptical of this from the trailers, but it added a huge layer of depth and exploration to a game that already has plenty of it in the first place. And things really start to open up once you unlock abilities to let you explore these areas without having to go up for air every 10 seconds. On top of that, they added all new machine types to these sections to help populate them seamlessly into the world. The way they incorporate these underwater sections into some areas in the story maybe could have used a bit more polish, but overall they were a huge addition to the game that will set a new benchmark for underwater exploration in open world games. As for the enemy variety, this game ups the ante from its predecessor in considerable ways by adding some truly colossal machines. I really love all the new designs of the larger machines, but the Tremor Tusk is easily my absolute favorite. These larger machines allow for some really great and memorable boss fights, with one of them probably being in contention for boss fight of the year when it's all said and done. I also wanted to touch upon the phenomenal voice acting in this game really quickly. Ashley Birch does an incredible job with Aloy yet again. The number of lines she likely had to record for this game are insane, as there are so many dialogue options, and the level of talent that is on display here is clear.
So back to holograms instead of face-to-face? What, afraid I'd stab you or something?
There's a reason
And using the same spyware. I see, so all those times I called, you could have just answered?
If she isn't at least among one of the top 3 voice acting performances this year, I'll be incredibly surprised. She really does deserve all the praise in the world for this. She did a fantastic job. The sound design in this game is also phenomenal. The noises that each of the machines make are insanely cool, and it's something I don't think is mentioned enough in these games.
Spot it. Gotta move.
But also the soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. I was a huge fan of the OST in Horizon Zero Dawn, but I think they might have just outdone themselves on this one, especially with a nice little song that was implemented really well in the beginning of the game.
The edge beyond the shore, this weight of root and rot, I long to reach the other, to find.
Also, I really enjoyed how they did the skill tree in this game. Between all 6 sections, each is broken up to offer a completely different playstyle. Yes, you'll still be hitting the machines with projectiles to take them down, but investing in each of these sections allowed a nice change up in the game that helped it consistently feel fresh. I really enjoyed some of the new traversal elements that they added into this game, like the pole caster that lets you scale the side of mountains quickly, and the glider that lets you get down from those high up places quickly and safely, which is much better than my older method of just jumping off high points and see if I could survive or not. That's a far safer alternative. The last couple of things that I enjoyed about this game that I really want to quickly mention are the improvements to the melee system, as well as a board game that was added into Forbidden West called Machine Strike. The melee system feels like a huge leap from the first game, as there are so many great combos that you can chain together, and you can explore all of that in these melee pits. And the Machine Strike board game was a great way to wind down from some of the more intense moments in this game. And while it never quite approaches the addictiveness that was Gwent in The Witcher 3,
Ever play Gwent?
it definitely kept me interested by having the player collect new pieces, as well as introducing new boards and difficulties.
There's nothing I wouldn't do to save this world. No depths I won't explore.
Alright, so now for the part of the review where I talk about things in this game that I think could use some improvement. And since no game is perfect, let's talk about them. While Horizon Forbidden West has so many improvements over its predecessor, there are still some areas that could use improvement, as the one big thing that frustrated me while playing Forbidden West was how imprecise some of the platforming of Aloy's movements were. There are times where it felt very unforgiving for the lack of precision that the game provides, which could lead to some frustrated moments, especially during difficult puzzles. And I think the devs knew that this was kind of a bit of an issue, as a lot of the levels designed had ladders built into them so that Aloy could easily scale up once the player has reached a certain point in a puzzle, which certainly lessens the blow when you aren't able to land how you would want to, but still, this would not have been as needed if the platforming just simply felt better and had more precision to it. Another aspect of the game that I think could use some improvements are the inconsequential dialogue choices. The game gives you the illusion at times that your choices really shape the narrative, but after looking at some of the differences once I completed completed the game, there are really only minor differences to inevitably arrive at the same story beats. And that's not to say that I need to have the same level of impact as the Omega 4 Relay that we had in the Mass Effect games, but something close to that would be great for future games in this series. Now, as impressed as I was by a lot of the side quests in this game and the amazing lore that it offers, some of the main story dialogue and cutscenes feel like they're fairly long-winded and realistically could have been a little bit more succinct. Since I was really into the narrative to begin with, this didn't feel like a huge impact for me personally, but taking a step back and knowing that there are others who might not have been as invested as me in the story, it will likely feel like a bit of a slog to get through in certain moments, which certainly can take away from the overall experience. I'm someone who almost always exhausts every single line of dialogue in a game, and even still, there are some options in here that I didn't select as I felt like I got more than enough information already. Luckily, a lot of these frustrations didn't impact my enjoyment of the game a ton, and I had a great time with it in spite of them. After all is said and done, Horizon Forbidden West might just be one of the best sequels in gaming that I've ever played. Virtually everything that its predecessor did, it improves upon, making it an open world game to remember. I'm gonna give Horizon Forbidden West a 9.3 out of 10. I really enjoyed my time with this game and even platinumed it after about 52 hours. For me, it's Game of the Year caliber, but this year might be a little tough as one of the highest rated games of all time recently just came out. Though I do think it's possible that this game is what some other open world games of this style will be measured up against, as there will likely be two definitive styles of open world games moving forward. The style of Forbidden West and the style of Elden Ring. In my opinion, both have their own place, but that's an entirely different discussion for another time. Anyway, if you like this review, please feel free to support this channel by clicking like and subscribe. And if there are any other games that you want to see me review, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I also post videos about new games daily on my TikTok, and if you want to chat about games while I play a variety of different games, feel free to jump over to my Twitch channel where I stream every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Anyway, let's talk about what I like most in this game, which is catching Pokemon. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Eric, you can catch Pokemon in pretty much every game. What makes this one so special? Does the fact that you can catch 3 Pokemon at pretty much the exact same time in rapid succession interest you at all? That's pretty damn cool in my book.